Okay, let's start. We're on page 28. Simon Tov Mem Beis, Sif Daled. Tov Mem Beis, Sif Daled, page 28. Okay. This is the Sif about medicines. Right. Medicines with chometz in it. Let's have a look. Sif Daled. Dover shenis arev boy chometz. Something which has chometz mixed into it. Ve'inu ma'achal odom klal. Either it's completely inedible, or it's not food for everyone, meaning it's just for ill people, sick people. Right, that was the name of one of the medicines used in the times of Chazal that had some chometz in it. Even though one may own it over Pesach, one may keep it in one's property over Pesach. Also, one may not eat it until after Pesach. Even if it has only a small amount of chometz in it, one may not eat it. Says the Umar that some argue on this and hold that if it's bottom, if it was nullified before Pesach, then one can use it, and this is how we pass. Okay, let's have a look at the MISHNA Berura and explain exactly what's going on, and then we'll see if this is similar to medicines nowadays.
Can I ask just a question in general? In the Torah, there's a description of something called Pesach and something called matzahs. Like the Pesach seems to be one day, and the holiday of matzahs seems to be the rest of the 7 days. Right? When we're talking about Pesach here, we're talking about that whole period of time.
Yes, there's a change between the Torah. The name of the festival in the Torah is Chag HaMatzos.
Right.
Right. We call the Torah just refers to Pesach, to the Korban Pesach,
which is the first night for us.
Right. Right. Whereas we call the Holy Yontif Pesach rather than Chag HaMatzos. Okay. The Torah name of the festival is Chag HaMatzos.
So all this is a reference.
When we
to
talk
the
about Pesach, we're talking about what we call Pesach.
Okay.
That's already there. In the time of Chazal already, they started using the word Pesach to describe the whole Chag rather than Chag HaMatzos. Okay. Okay. It's not a new invention. That's a new change. Okay. So let's have a look at MISHNA Berura Cotton Yud Ches. Even if the chometz got mixed into the medicine before Pesach, this concept of choser v'nir, in short, is even though there's a concept called bittul, where something gets nullified, if it gets mixed into the right proportions. We're not going to go into all the exact details now. Sometimes you need shishim, 1 in 60, sometimes even less than that. It can be nullified. On Pesach, there's a halacha that Pesach is also even b'mashu. Pesach is not, on Pesach, chometz is also even b'mashu. If even a crumb of chometz falls into a food, it's not bottle. It's not nullified. It's as if one's eating when he eats the crumb, he's eating the crumb, even if it's mixed into a large amount of another food. The question is, what happens if it got mixed in before Pesach? Right? So then it was nullified. Before Pesach it was nullified because it was less than, let's say, 1 in 60. And then Pesach comes along. Does it get reawakened? The principle of choser v'nir means to get reawakened. Does it get reawakened or not? Again, nullification happens before Pesach. On Pesach, if it was to fall in on Pesach, it wouldn't be nullified. What happens if it falls in before Pesach and then Pesach arrives? Does that nullification get nullified? And does the chometz get reawakened and does it become awesome? That's the principle of the choser v'nir. So he says here that it's choser v'nir, that even if there's a small amount of chometz mixed into this mixture, it gets reawakened on Pesach, and therefore it's a problem. It's not bottle. Okay, so even a small amount of chometz in this triaka, in this medicine called triaka, is problematic. Let's continue.
If it's an intended ingredient. Is there a difference between if something had accidentally...
At the moment, no. There's no difference. With the times of bittul, if a crumb gets mixed into your Pesach food, even accidentally...
Prior to Pesach.
Yeah, if it gets reawakened, it's a problem. Let's continue. So if cotton yud tes, chometz. Okay, this is hainu chometz malya. We're talking here about proper edible chometz before it got mixed in. After it got mixed into this medicine, it became unfitting for consumption. If there's a mistake here, has to be changed to Nishinis Arev. If it was chometz nuksha before it got mixed in, chometz nuksha we talked about last week. Chometz nuksha means that it wasn't so edible even before it got mixed in. It wasn't proper food even before it got mixed in. So if it was before it got mixed in, it wasn't properly edible, and then it got mixed in and became totally inedible. In such a case, then many achronim hold this okay. This is chometz nuksha alidei tarovis. It's chometz nuksha. Originally, it's not so edible. It got mixed in and now becomes completely inedible. So in that case, many achronim hold it's completely mutter. Okay? Whereas, in the case where it was proper edible chometz, and it's only inedible because it's mixed into this mixture, then it's not allowed. Okay, is it clear? The distinction is clear? Okay, let's move on. So we're going to read all the MISHNA Berura and then we'll talk about the halacha, how this pans out. Practically speaking. So Kodem Kaf, Kol Odom, so we're talking about, when we say it's only edible, it's not edible for everyone. The Lashon the Shulchan Aruch was, Eino Machol Kol Odom. It's not food for everyone. What that means is it's only food for ill people, for sick people. A healthy person wouldn't eat such a thing. Okay, that's the definition of it's not edible. So Kodem Kaf Aleph, Ava Bishamuta Lechayim Osu Lacholoi, Va'av She'einu Ro'i Lachilo, Mekomokum Kimtuhu. Okay, this is a very important concept. We discussed it, we also mentioned this last week. The concept of achsheve. So we have here a food which is edible, edible chometz, mixed into an inedible mixture. Right? The mix is ready to inedible. Now one eats this on Pesach. Okay? An ill person's eating it. Okay? Even though it's not edible for healthy people, the sick person needs it because it's got medicinal properties, right? Healing properties. Okay, so he eats on Pesach. Is this a problem? It's inedible. The problem is the principle of achsheve. To own this mixture on Pesach, there's no problem because it's inedible. If it's inedible chometz is not chometz. Right? We mentioned this concept last week. Once the chometz is inedible, it's not for all intents and purposes. It's not chometz. One may own the chometz on Pesach. However, there's a principle called achsheve. Right, a rabbinic principle called achsheve. Achsheve from the notion of choshev, importance. Achsheve means I'm giving it importance. By me eating it, I'm showing that I do render it as important, edible food. Right? And therefore, even though I may own such chometz on Pesach, because it's not chometz, however, if I eat it, then I'm giving it importance, and therefore I'm considering it as edible chometz. And therefore, we may not eat such a mixture on Pesach. Okay? Let's continue. So Kodem Kav Beis, Hari Ze Osu La'ochloi. Umekol Mokum B'Hano'o Mutur, Kishenasat HaRov Kedem HaPesach, Pas She'ef Shel Elvis Beis. One may have other sorts of benefits, we may benefit from the chometz. Like we said, we may own the chometz on Pesach, we may also benefit from this mixture on Pesach, because it's not chometz. The only problem is if one eats it, because then one's turning it back into edible chometz. But one may do whatever one wants with it other than eat it. One may own it, one may have other sorts of benefits, just one may not eat it. We discussed last week if one may anoint it, if one may rub it into one's skin. Does achsheve apply in a case where it gets absorbed into one's skin? Is that like drinking the chometz? That we discussed last week in Machlokes. But other sorts of benefit which are not eating or drinking or rubbing into one's skin, one may have benefit because it's not called chometz.
He raises two other questions, right? One is intravenously, and the other is as a suppository. Are either of them considered to be eating, or no?
Excellent questions.
You Yom Kippur and use as suppository is not considered eating.
Right, for caffeine.
Correct, yeah. Because definitely Yom Kippur is not. The question is here in terms of this principle of achsheve. Am I giving it importance? Am I turning it into something edible? Answers I don't know. That's an excellent question.
I think edible generally assumes through the mouth.
Right. The question here is if you're making it because those who are machma with rubbing it into one's skin, presumably would also be machma in the case of the suppositories.
Right.
It could be the people that the poskim that are making in the case of rubbing it into one's skin would say it's only if one actually eats it, in which case, like you're saying, one's not eating it. Yeah. Let's move on. Let's see a few more, and then we'll discuss. Let's move on. So the MISHNA Berura, he says if one needs it for a 4, the MISHNA Berura then Simtov Samach Vav Sif Aleph, he mentions there that in case where something's only also midrabanon, and we very much needs it, then there are cases one can be making. B'mokum choili v'afilu ein be'sakona lo ygozu. Definitely some more principles which we will need for this puzzle which we're going to put together in a minute. Definitely in the case of if it's pikuach nefesh, of course one can eat chometz. It doesn't make a difference if it's necessary to save one's life, of course. But even in a case where there's no sakona involved, one's not going to die from it. However, there's a principle of b'mokum choili lo ygozu. Sometimes we say that if it's just a rabbinic prohibition, and he's ill, it's in case of a sick person, then they weren't gozer. They never made a decree, they never ushered it in the case where the person is sick. Mm-hmm. Okay? So in certain cases, even if a medicine is also because of the principle of achshaveh, this principle of achshaveh is only drabonon, so it could be we'll allow it for a sick person. Okay? We're already smelling out some possible heterim here, and then we're going to put it all together and see what we have. Let's continue a bit further. So cotton kaf gimel. So the tikim shekvar nispatel kodem Pesach lo yomino dechoyze v'neo. The more lenient opinion holds that seeing as the chometz is already nullified before Pesach, it does not get reawakened when Pesach arrives, as we discussed before. Achmesh shesim v'hochi kaimelon hu pele tari kosev shom da minag lohokel boze v'lo yima shekvar nispatel hu rak dafke shesav lach belach v'lo yiknesav yovish b'yovish achakach motzosti shekvar yisrael b'zeh chamad Moshe. We're not going to go into all the nitty-gritty details here of nullifying chometz. There's a difference between two types of mixtures. A mixture called lach belach, which in short is a liquid. Liquids get mixed in completely, whereas solids, they're not mixed in. Right? They're just mixed up. You don't know when you're eating the solid, am I eating the chometz or not eating the chometz? Whereas if you're drinking the liquid, you know the liquid contains as elements of all the various different ingredients. The liquid is completely bolul, completely mixed up, whereas the yovish isn't. The dry mixture isn't completely mixed up.
You went by something very quickly. Yeah. This is an opposite opinion that says that it doesn't wake up the chametz?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So that was the Ramah says that yesh chokum matirim, that it doesn't get reawakened, okay. And the MISHNA Berura here is mentioning that it depends if it's a lach balach, a liquid mixture, or yovish b'yovish, a solid mixture. Mm-hmm. Okay, and the MISHNA Berura says that the minag lahokel is only if it's a lach balach, if it's a liquid mixture. Whereas if it's a solid mixture, then it does get reawakened. Yeah, there's a Chazon Ish that holds that in this case of medicine, it never gets reawakened. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's talk about what we've seen now. Okay, let's put it together. Okay, first of all, we have the issue that the chometz is the reason to be matik. The reason why it shouldn't be a problem is that the chometz is inedible. Okay, the chometz is inedible. It's not something that a regular person would eat. That has been put into a medicine, a regular person would not eat such a mixture. Okay, that's the reason to be matter. What's the problem? The problem is achshaveh. That when I eat it, I'm rendering it into edible chometz. Okay, so does this apply with our chometz mixtures nowadays? There's the Chazon Ish and other poskim explain that this principle of achshaveh is only the case here where he actually wants to eat the chometz. He wants to eat the chometz. However, if it's in a case where he's talking about a case where you have various different various different medicinal ingredients which are held together by flour. The flour is holding it together. So there he says that you don't want to eat the flour. The flour is just holding together the other ingredients. Right. But you're not interested in eating the flour. So in that case, even though you're eating it, he says there's no principle of achshaveh. Okay, so it'd be allowed. Mm-hmm. Okay?
Makes sense.
Okay, so we have that heter as well. Mr. Goldstein, perhaps you could give us some. Can you give us some examples of as our resident pharmacist? The case of the chaznish, is that still used nowadays? He talks about where the flour is used to stick together, to hold together
Binder.
as a binder.
It's a very common thing.
That's very common nowadays. Flour is used as a binder.
I thought they had switched to corn flour because it was cheaper as opposed to wheat flour.
So the starch is used as a binder. So in that case, where starch is used as a binder, according to the Chazal, this is not a problem. There's no problem of achshave because you don't want to eat the binder. The binder is just there to hold together other ingredients.
A medicinal thing, and the ingredient that's going to cause a medicinal action.
Right, that would be the problem. But if it's just a binder, according to the Chazal, it's not a problem. So you're saying it's common in pills.
Yeah.
Pills often use flour. Okay, interesting. They still use that.
The problem with the sweetener though, as well. The big problem happens in the camp here.
Yeah.
Sweet tablets are a problem.
They have the sweetener is made from
Something they talk about the sweetener. If it has the sweetener, it's a problem.
If the sweetener is made from a chometz ingredient.
It's nuksha.
Right.
Most sweeteners are nuksha.
Well, the sweetener by itself is inedible. It's slightly inedible. Slightly edible, slightly inedible. That's interesting. So that's the case where the sweetener itself is but before it's mixed in, isn't so edible. And then you're mixing it in, and now it's becoming completely inedible. Now it's just a medicine. It's not a food anymore. So in that case, the MISHNA Berura brought down that there are opinions that are maker, that are right. So in all these cases of medicines that have chometz in them, right? If one can choose a medicine which does the same job, which has not got chometz, of course that's preferable. In a case where one can't, we've seen him many a teirim. Right, so one definitely has to ask, get the facts from the pharmacist and take the facts to the Rav and find out if we can use the chometz use the medicine Pesach. There are many reasons to be mastir. First of all, we have the heter of the chazan ish. If the chometz is just a binder, right, then there's no problem with achshave. This medicine is inedible. It's only edible for ill people. It's inedible, right? And the problem is just achshave and making it edible by eating it. Here, there's a binder. I don't want to eat the binder. The binder is just to hold the other ingredients together. So we have the heter of the chazan ish. We have the second heter, which is if it was nuksha before it was put in. Right? If the chometz wasn't so edible, was only slightly edible before it got mixed in, and now it becomes completely inedible. There are many achonim, there are matir. We have the heter of mamokum choli lo gozu. If it's only an issa de rabbanon, then often the rabbanon won't gozu. Right? This can be matter, even medicine which was completely edible. Right? It's completely edible. Often, if one was to wrap it up with a thin layer of something of paper, something very very thin, that's called eating it shaloi gederech achila. One's not eating it in a proper way.
Like a capsule?
Right, some sort of capsule, some sort of thin capsule. Right, could also be shaloi gederech achila, which is also turn it into a drabonon. Once we lower to level of drabonon, just a rabbinic prohibition, b'mokum choli lo gozu, for ill people, the rabbanon won't gozer. Okay, there's another heter we have. And then we have the heter we talked about bittul. Very often it could be that the chometz was nullified. And one final heter which is not mentioned here, which is mentioned in the MISHNA Berura Hilchos Shabbos, Siman Shin Mem Gimel, in terms of children. Children, generally speaking, we don't give them prohibited foods to eat. We don't give them isurim. However, if they need it, the halachas are much more maker. So even if I have a food which is complete chometz, it's completely edible, right? Some sort of mixture which is completely edible, I don't want to eat it, but he needs it for his to heal him. Okay, so even though I may not own such chometz, it's chometz. I may not own it on Pesach. It's proper chometz, right? However, if the child needs it to heal him, right, I can give it to a goy. The goy owns the chometz; it belongs to the goy. Preferably, I shouldn't even bring it to my house. Preferably, it should be in the house of the goy. And then we take the child over to the goy's house, and the goy gives the child the chometz to eat. Okay, so therefore, this is a case of even when it's proper chometz. It's proper chometz. It's edible chometz, right? I may not own it on Pesach. However, I may give it to the child to eat. Right? The best is it preferably in the goy's house. In certain cases, we would allow even to be in the Jew's house under certain conditions. But preferably speaking, in the goy's house, the child goes over to the goy's house. We give the child the chometz in the goy's house, and that's fine.
Now we come to an interesting point. If in the pharmacy I've sold the chometz to a goy, okay?
Yeah.
As we do, and the person comes in and buys acamel syrup for the child.
Right.
Acamel's okay. The one that's not okay, the red one, it's not chometz. I can actually sell the red one, on Pesach.
Okay, here we have a case where the red one is the one with chometz.
Yes.
The red one with chometz.
And somebody comes in and the child needs it.
Right.
I can then sell that one?
One second.
No,
Here the head of the child wouldn't help. Because here the problem is the chometz is owned by a Jew. So if it is defined as proper chometz, then it doesn't help. We're talking about the head of the child is in the case of where the goy, the chometz has been sold to who?
Then it's not yours to sell.
How can you sell it on? Right? How can you sell it to
You sell
be
the
sold?
boys.
If the child needs it. I'm just saying it's a case.
But if you sold the chometz before Pesach, then you can't then sell it on because it belongs to the goy on Pesach, right? But probably the case of Akamol is not this case. The case of Akamol is one of the first cases we talked about, where the Akamol is not edible. It's not an edible mixture.
No.
So
It's not an edible
sell.
mixture,
He doesn't
and
need to
therefore there's
sell.
no problem. It doesn't need to sell it even. It's chometz that one may own on Pesach.
Right.
So that fits into the first case we talked about, where may one use it on Pesach, but owning is not a problem, and therefore selling it to someone is definitely not a problem, and there may be cases where he can use it on Pesach, as we discussed.
Can I just add one thing while we're on medicine? I learned from Rav Miller, who's senior Rav in Toronto, a cautionary tale. And that is that people often are concerned about the capsules that pills come in. So they'll take the pills out of the contents of out of the capsule to avoid swallowing the capsule. And this should never, ever be done. I think Michael's not here, but they're in those capsules for a reason. Right? They have timed release. And if you take them all in one spoon, it's a very unhealthy and it can be a very dangerous thing to do. So those capsules should never be opened or disposed of.
Okay.
Just a warning.
Fine, thank you.
And it's actually for all kashrus. This applies not just Pesach.
Right. They're probably talking about in the case of because of this of gelatin.
Yeah,
capsules.
that's right. It usually
That's probably how it comes up.
that's exactly what it was, and so it's not really a chametz issue,
Right.
but it's something that comes up, and
Right.
I just wanted to say it because it happens, and people get very sick from it.
Fine. Thank you for warning us. Okay, fine. Yeah. Done with the medicines. We'll move on Tuesday, Mitzvah Hashem. Tuesday is our last shiur of the season.